Hey, this is Mark Kendall from Great White, and you're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 449 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always, and we've got a great one. Mark Kendall, the founding member and guitarist of the band Great White, is back on this podcast. And when I say back, I mean for the first time in nearly 9 years. This is his third time on the podcast, but the most recent appearance was June of 2017. Some time has passed, so I had a few things to talk with Mark about. One, of course, being the recent news last month that Brett Carlisle, the current singer of Great White, auditioned on American Idol, and Mark was there with him. So we're going to talk a ton about that, talk about new music that's coming with Brett, talk about what's going on in Mark's life, his new book, his battle with cancer. Glad to have Mark back on the podcast. We're going to get into that shortly, but first I'm going to let you know who sponsors this podcast. DEB Concerts, a promoter based out of the Tulsa area that's brought tons of great acts to Tulsa over the years, like Lamb of God, Snoop Dogg, Megadeth, Saxon, Buckcherry, Ice Cube, Steelheart. The list is great, the list is long, and they also book the Roadhouse DEB concert stage at Rocklahoma every year, and always brings in great acts for that stage and for the pre-party. This year at Rocklahoma, Labor Day weekend 2026 is no exception. Bands on the DEB concert stage will feature Slaughter. Mark Slaughter's been on this podcast before. Plush, She Hates Me Not, Molly Hatchet, Jump, a Van Halen tribute, Ozolution, an Ozzy tribute, and the mighty Ugly Kid Joe. All that at Rocklahoma this year. Check out rocklahoma.com for the full lineup featuring the headliners on the main stage and all that great stuff. DEBconcerts.com to kept up to date there. Follow them on socials, and of course, right here, I'll let you know anytime new DEB concerts are announced as well. We've also got Sunset Tattoo, a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. Of course, they're state licensed, and they've got well over 30 years of experience down there. Jake and his crew have been doing great stuff for many years. It's Native American owned. He's got a female artist on staff full time. You can check out tons of photos from their work throughout the years on their social media, Facebook and Instagram as both Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. I've had work done by Jake multiple times. I'm very happy with it. I know many other people that have as well. And I know that you would be if you got work done there yourself. So if you have something you're looking to be, kind of brought to life that you're not sure how to do it, hit them up. Give them a call, shoot them a message to set up a time to talk to them, or they accept walk-ins. So if it's something that's not too elaborate, you can maybe just walk in there and make it happen. Hit up Sunset Tattoo and tell him you heard about him right here on Thunder Underground. All right, the subject at hand today is Mark Kendall is back on this podcast. The last episode that he was on was episode 129. And here we are, 320 episodes later on 449. Mark Kendall has been the guitarist of Great White since the inception. He and Jack Russell founded this band at the end of the 70s. Well, basically, the story goes they founded the band around 1977, but then kind of separated for a bit and came back together around 80, 81. So the band has been together for 46 years at this point. They, of course, really hit their stride by 84 when they put out their debut album and just took off from there. So we're talking now 42 years since Great White's debut album was released, and they're still going strong. Here we are in 2026, and Great White was just on the reality singing competition juggernaut known as American Idol. This past month, Brett Carlisle auditioned, and he brought Mark Kendall with him. Michael Lardy, also from Great White, came along, and they played a stripped-down acoustic version of House of Broken Love, which is very cool. As Mark talks about here, upcoming in the interview, it's the first time it had ever really been performed that way, with piano, acoustic guitar, and vocals only. You can check it out on, Hulu or Hulu. I just combined Hulu and YouTube together, one or the other, or wherever you look up stuff like that. I haven't checked in several days, but the version of his audition that appeared live on air and on, obviously what you rewatch on the aired version on Hulu and the YouTube segment they released is a condensed version. It's like a minute and a half, and they combined him with two other artists that were also singing hard rock, of course. There was a guy doing Motorhead and a guy doing Fuel. And in typical, reality pop culture fashion, they kind of combined all the rock guys together and didn't give them the full shine that they do everybody else. But we shouldn't complain because we're celebrating the fact that they're actually doing this, at least. And it's cool that Brett is getting to showcase his voice to a whole new, generation of Great White fans, or even old school Great White fans that might not have known they were still going on, or knew that they had another singer since Terry. There's been a couple guys, and a lot of people might not even have known that they had someone since Jack, because people don't pay attention to what's going on outside if they're not listening to podcasts like you are right now. We're the type of people that really, listeners of this kind of stuff, and people that really look up news and really are in tune with music, are always kind of looking for new things and digging for that news. But your mainstream audience is not. So for Great White to be on not just national television, but a major television show with millions of viewers and millions that are going to rewatch this streaming on YouTube or wherever, it's a massive thing for a band like this to get this kind of exposure this day and age. And it's cool to see stuff like this happening. Megadeth just had a #1 album on Billboard, their first ever, in the year 2026. Bands like Sleep Token, I know it's a totally different genre, but heavy bands had gotten big in the mainstream in the last year or two, and it's all this crap with Youngblood and the whole Ozzy thing. It's cool to see rock, at least, whether it's the same types of rock you listen to or not. It's at least cool to see rock getting its shine once again this day and age. Maybe we're seeing a new turning of the tide. It happens every 10 years or so. Who knows? But yeah, upcoming in this, we're going to talk about new music that Great White's been putting together. Really looking forward to that. It's been 9 years since the most recent new music when they put out the album Full Circle. I want to speak a little bit on my fandom of this band. It's going back to Great White's heyday. I was like the perfect age for kind of to just grab onto bands like this, because I was 12 in 1989. I was really getting in around 1988. I was really getting into all the mainstream hard rock that was on the radio. Bon Jovi, Poison, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, a few other things. Bad Company was back with rock hits. Just whatever was going on there in the hard rock world. And I kind of shifted a bit around 90 to really getting into Megadeth and Metallica and Anthrax and that kind of stuff as well. But my love for the melodic side of rock never went away. And Great White was one of those bands that I just really kind of grabbed onto around that time. Like Once Bitten, or the song Once Bitten, Twice Shy, and the songs like Save Your Love and Rock Me were all over the radio here in Oklahoma just as much as anywhere else. And I just, I got the album Twice Shy, fell in love with it. After that, got Once Bitten. Hooked was not long after that. That's the other thing. They put out a lot of albums in a short period of time, which was something that bands, did in the 60s and 70s, but it had stopped by this point. For the most part, it was still at least a 2-year album cycle. And Great White did that with Once Bitten to Twice Shy, but then Twice Shy was 89, Hooked was 91, Psycho City was 92. So you got 3 full-length rock albums in the span of 3 years, basically. And I loved all this. As like I said, 12 years old whenever Twice Shy came out. As a 12-year-old boy looking at that cover, I'm like, ooh, this is pretty awesome. And then a couple years later in 91, so what does that make me, 14, Hooked came out. And as a 14-year-old boy, the album cover for Hooked was quite possibly the greatest piece of art I had ever seen in my life. Not trying to sound shallow as a middle-aged dude now. I'm just saying that at 14, I'm like, yeah, this is what rock and roll is, right? But I love the music on it. I mean, that album had 2 of my favorite Great White songs are Call It Rock and Roll and Desert Moon. Going back So many great songs throughout that era that just combined such great bluesiness, because you got bluesiness from Mark's guitar and bluesiness from Jack's vocals. And then when you add in, pianos and keyboards, it gives it this great bluesy sense that, there were other bands around that time like Tesla or Junkyard or Cinderella that were incorporating that thing, but I think Great White did it more. It felt more like almost like a blues band that decided to become a hard rock band as opposed to the other way around. I'm probably completely off base with that, but that's just kind of the feeling I get. It just sounds more of a natural thing on that end. But their first album wasn't really that way, so, who am I to say? I'm just kind of free flow talking here. The period I just mentioned, that Twice Shy to basically Sail Away, was like the kind of pinnacle period for me, because that's whenever I was like heavily into it, those formative years, basically your high school years. I mean, by 94, whenever Sail Away came out, the entire landscape of rock music had shifted. You were two years deep into Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and all that stuff dominating the radio. You had stuff on the metal end like Pantera and White Zombie that had really kind of taken over. And the majority of bands from the 80s that were in this hard rock realm, kind of got pushed aside. Some bands managed in there. The bigger ones like Bon Jovi or Motley Crue, didn't completely disappear, but they just didn't have as big of success. But I thought Great White, what they did was, I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just kind of the path they were on, but whenever they put out Psycho City, which we talk a hell of a lot here coming up about, because this is my favorite Great White album, it has a very, it fits very well in the year of 1992, if you were around back then, because that was that was the year where everything changed. But you still had kind of the stuff from the 80s still hanging around on radio. And you had all the, the new grunge and the new alternative stuff coming in as well. And then you had all these bands like Black Crowes and Brother Kane and Jackal kind of fit in there as well. So it was a very cool period. And, and then in the pop culture, you had gangster rap going on and all this stuff. So it was kind of a darker pop culture time. Psycho City, fit perfect into that. And that's even kind of what some of the themes about it were, as Mark will talk about here coming up in a bit. But then 2 years later, they shift into Sail Away, which is a complete 180 from Psycho City. It's completely acoustic-based, driven. It's not completely acoustic, but it's very much stripped down, driven. With the Sail Away got played a ton on the radio here, which I always thought was very cool, but kind of odd because most of those bands weren't getting to play. And I think it's because it didn't sound like a typical 80s power ballad or a typical song about, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And maybe that's why it worked and was able to slip into that radio in between Soundgarden and White Zombie. I don't know. But that's just at least how it worked here in Oklahoma. Songs like All Right and Crying and Living in the USA on that album are fantastic. And then they put out Great Zeppelin later in the 90s, which is just fantastic as well. If you've never had the opportunity to listen to this, they did a full live album of Great White doing Led Zeppelin songs. And if you know anything about Great White, you're obviously listening to this, so I'm sure you do. Mark's guitar and Jack's vocals lend very well to that band, and they did an exceptional job. And we also get a cool story from Mark relating to Led Zeppelin, not specifically that performance, but they performed a Led Zeppelin song at their MTV Unplugged earlier in the 90s that became a radio kind of staple around that time. But yeah, if you're just a rock fan and you're listening to this because of that reason, and Great White for their hits, their radio singles, I appreciate you listening, but really check out this stuff I've mentioned. Check out the album Can't Get There From Here from the end of the 90s. It's great as well. The work they did with Terry Ailou was great in my opinion, and I'm really looking forward to what they're going to release here with Brett, because the live videos I've seen of Brett and all the reviews I've read of Brett, and of course you can see him performing, like I said on American Idol. You can see this guy is a natural fit for a band like Great White. He's a young dude in his late 20s, so he's got a lifetime ahead of him in the music business, and glad to see that, we're getting some of that here with Great White and hope that continues for quite a while. So let's jump into this now and hear what Mark has to say about Brett, American Idol, Psycho City, and all kinds of other great stuff throughout the years with Great White. Here's Mark Kendall. Happy to hear that cancer diagnosis has a good outlook, and it's something that's made for you.
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. It's unbelievable. This it's just the technology these days is so much different than a long time ago. Like 25 years ago, they just removed the kidney instantly without even thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my kidney's functioning 100%. It's just like my other one. It just has this little cancer. It's really shrunk down now to where it's really small. So hopefully I can get no sign of the disease, and then they just check me every 3 months.
Well, I had read that you said it wasn't curable, but if that mass completely disappears, what does that mean? Is it still there?
Well, I guess once you have it, it could pop up anywhere or something.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So, but if you can get it to no sign of the disease, you can catch it real early because they check you every 3 months. So if it does come somewhere, they can shoot it down when it's small. Because a lot of times what happens, people get colon cancer and don't know they have it. So by the time they find out, it's spread everywhere and you got no chance. So This was a case, they were able to shrink the crap out of it with this medicine. And so I'm doing good, man.
Very good. Very good to hear. Well, the big news in the world of Great White right now, of course, is American Idol. Stepping back to when you first knew this was happening or first heard about it, what was your kind of instant reaction to hearing Brett was going to do this?
Well, I don't want to stop him from any opportunity like something that big, so we were fully supportive. And we go, hey, man, we'll go down there and jam with you, back you up. And plus, it didn't hurt the band. I mean, 6 million people watching every night. They're going to know we still exist, at least,
Right.
So it was a lot of fun. It was actually a good experience. And they filmed this all day long. It was amazing how much they chopped it up. And it was just this little tiny segment.
Yeah.
I was doing interviews for like 6 hours. They were filming us like walking down the street and doing this and that. I guess they want plenty of footage, to cut down or something.
Yeah.
But he did great, and so it was cool, man.
Definitely got to be mutually beneficial to both of you, like you said, because this gets his voice out there, and it also kind of reminds people about Great White too at the same time, and consistently every time he's on screen, I would assume they're going to attach your name to that too.
Especially since we don't have all the mediums we used to have where we're in everybody's face every 5 minutes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's no MTV, no record stores, they don't play current music anymore on the radio. So, we're kind of flying under the radar, not by design on our part, but, so to be on a national show like that, they used to say comedians like way back years and years ago, like if you weren't on Ed Sullivan, you just ain't happening, like you'd have to play clubs for 50 years to get that much exposure.
Yeah.
It's same with Johnny Carson. If you didn't get on Johnny Carson, you're like a nobody. So this is, to get on a national show like that, all the old fans, maybe some of the ones that didn't know were still around, know now,
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And plus, I love the choice of House of Broken Love because it gets that song kind of back out in the spotlight. And it was it was a hit single, but it kind of flown under the radar, over the past 20, 30 years compared to some other songs.
Plus the way we delivered it, because when we went out and saw where we were going to do the audition deal, with the judges right there and everything, there was a piano. And Michael saw there was a way to tune it down because we tuned to E flat. And there was even though it's acoustic piano, it had a function to where you can tune the piano to E flat. I go, it sounded so nice. I go, let's deliver House of Broken Love that way, acoustic guitar and piano. And so we never played it like that before. So it was a different look, for the song. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah. That wasn't the original idea going in to have it stripped down? Oh, okay.
That was the last second decision.
Very
we were
cool.
both going to play acoustic guitars, but when we seen the piano, we thought it would, sound nice and full with guitar and piano together. And it sounded good.
Well, I mean, obviously, I know that show is designed to showcase his voice, but it's kind of weird hearing House of Broken Love without your guitar intro in there.
Yeah, it's a different look for sure. Just like we did years ago with Unplugged.
Right.
But we like the idea of doing the songs in a different way, with acoustic guitars. And then I had to learn "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You" by Led Zeppelin the night before we played it.
Oh, wow.
The manager calls me and says, "Jack wants to do "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You" by Zeppelin." I go, with no rehearsal? I mean, because it was the next day we were going to be on the MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, we'll go over it in the dressing room." It's this huge arrangement, And so what I did, Jack knew the song perfect, so I was using him for cues. Like I would start to go into the wrong part and then kind of fumble my way out of it, and but it ended up being good, and they put that in rotation. I couldn't believe it. But
so that was the version that ended up as a single?
MTV ran with it. We never put it out, but MTV put that in rotation.
Okay.
We did all kinds of other stuff. We did Rock Me, Face a Day, all that kind of stuff. But they ended up using the Zeppelin thing. So
yeah,
it was cool, though.
Yeah, I remember that getting played on the radio here a lot. "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You."
Totally amazing, because I didn't really know it. It was I was actually nervous. Have you ever seen the video? My hand's shaking. And then when I get to the very end, I'm all happy. I put my head up when I know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm gonna get by those last few chords.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
You're like, I'm 100% confident in every single one of these songs except this one, and this is the one you're going to air repeatedly.
Yeah. Exactly, man. I was a nervous wreck. Yeah.
You mentioned, not obviously you guys don't want to stand in the way of anything. Any opportunities for Brett, but does it give you pause at all thinking this might lead to him leaving at some point?
Well, if that happened, I mean, God bless him. Like I said, I didn't want to stop something like that. It's not like he's looking for other things. It was just, he watched that show when he was a little kid.
Okay. And
just for the hell of it, made this little audition tape, sent it in, and they called him out of 230,000 people. So, he didn't figure to even get on it, but when he did, he'd go, "Holy shit, man, they called me," So we weren't going to stop it. We're fully supportive, and but it's not like he's looking for gigs. It's just this thing came up,
Okay.
So we're just being supportive, and so it's all good, man.
Have you looked ahead, like if he continues in the show and moves along, is there going to be any possible show conflicts with the shows you guys have coming up in like March or whenever?
No. It'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Talking about, like you said, being there for 12 hours, I feel like you and Michael are kind of in a unique situation because you guys are surrounded by all these people that are like hoping that, their dreams come true.
Yeah.
To be in the music industry. And, I'm sure the television aspect was normal for you guys. You've been in that situation before, but just kind of being surrounded by people, and you've been doing this for 45 years. Like, what's that kind of feeling like? Is it just makes it a weird dichotomy for you? I don't know.
I loved it. I loved watching these kids, It was, they're nervous. Their parents are pacing. It was kind of fun to look at, Definitely a different environment. We did a lot of sitting around, just waiting for cameras, and so it wasn't like we saw that much. But like when we were waiting to do they called us to do the show, and there was, I think 2 people ahead of us, but there was other people waiting behind us, and all their parents. The parents were more nervous than the performers,
Right.
So it's pretty amazing.
When they show it on TV, a lot of times they'll show like the other contestants back, like responding to the act going on. Are they showing it on a screen back there to everybody? What's going on? Okay.
Yeah, you can watch it and hear it. You can actually hear it through monitors and stuff.
Okay, so you see everything that's going on on the auditions throughout the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see it. Depending on where you are, like we were in this like bar area, so that was more where we can get something to eat and stuff like that. And there was so many contestants, they were kind of spread everywhere. So, but when we were waiting to go on, there was monitors and feed, from the audio.
Going back a few years to when you guys first got Brett, I was a huge fan of Terry and the band as well. Mitch was great, but like, was the choice of Brett to kind of get it closer to that original sound of Jack, or was that a thought process you guys had? Or
no, what happened? We had Andrew Freeman in the band.
Oh yeah.
We actually parted ways with Mitch. We were kind of going in different directions. So Andrew Freeman came to sit in because Mitch was doing some Van Halen type project or something, and we decided just to use Andrew. But the problem was he was in a band called Last in Line with Vivian Campbell, and who's in Def Leppard. But when Def Leppard's not busy, then that's like full blown. Yeah, Last in Line is his main #1 project. So we were going to have to get different singers all the time, and we're not that type of band. We usually, even though we've gone through a few singers, we like one at a time. If it works out, great. So we auditioned 3 singers. We stripped all the vocals off off a live tape and sent it to 3 different singers. And Brett happened to be a friend. One of our good friends said, this kid's really good. He's like 28 years old or whatever. I think he was 26 maybe. And he'd have no problem singing your stuff. So we sent it to him. We sent it to 2 other guys. One guy in this band called, God, I can't remember, and another guy sang with George Lynch before and stuff. So Brett was the only guy that was paying attention, it seemed like. He was the closest. So I said, I'm not doing the show unless we rehearse. So we rehearsed one time in Vegas, kind of just went through the songs quickly. And the night of the show, I didn't even know how good he was because he wasn't very loud in my headphones. But I could tell the reaction from the crowd was great. But then after the show, all these journalists were coming up to me saying, if you don't keep that guy, you're crazy, and all this stuff like how great he was. And then I seen him on the internet from that show singing Stick It, and it was like nailed to totally amazing. And then it was sort of becoming world news about how great he did. So we had him do another show in New York and then one other one, and he just killed it. Like, he's singing perfect, right? So we did a group call and say, hey, what do you think about joining? What do you think about hitting the big time? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm totally into it, So it happened by accident that he turned out to be so good. And we just said, instead of struggling with Andrew on his scheduling, let's go with this guy that sings our song. We can do anything in our catalog now, and this guy's going to sing it perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, I'm working with him in the studio. I've been recording demos and new stuff, and he has great song sense for a young man. I mean, he's 28, but like, I play him music and he starts singing right away. He comes up with pretty decent lyrics and stuff. So, really good energy, and he's pretty natural, engaging the crowd live. Like, it's not scripted. Like, he just goes out and, hey, dude, giving people fist pumps and shit. He's got all this energy. So it's kind of boosted our energy a little bit having this guy in the band. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, is the age difference as far as like personalities and hanging out and just like outside of the music, is that like pretty
It's all
cohesive pretty
good.
quickly?
It's all
Yeah.
good. It's like he's an old soul or something, man. He fits right in.
Yeah.
Even in photos, it's not like he's standing with Crosby, Stills, and Nash or something, and we're all gray and fucked.
Right.
It don't look bad. I mean, it doesn't. So it's working on all levels. And he's a really cool, no drama type dude.
Yeah.
He's just a chill guy from Alabama. So it's pretty cool, man.
Well, you mentioned Stick It. Were there any specific songs you slid into the set list after he joined?
Yeah. We've been doing Oliver now, and
Oh, wow.
he sings at full power at the highest notes. He said it's easy. I'm going, those notes are easy because it's like in B and it's really high, and he's just screaming at full voice, no problem. So it's fun that we can do anything. Even the real high stuff like Highway Nights and stuff that would be considered B side stuff, but they're big songs in the sense the fans know them, but they're album songs, just maybe not didn't get tons of attention on the radio or MTV or anything. But we had 13 videos on MTV, so there's a lot we can grab that people have heard before.
Right.
The real big songs, of course, were kind of live on their own, but it's not like we're pulling things out that nobody's ever heard, and
Well, as far as like you said, demoing and like I've read before that you guys are writing together, like is that
yeah.
Do you have fully formed songs that are recorded or like are you still in that
Yeah.
process or like
We've recorded some, and we're looking March 13th. We're looking into studios right now, and the idea is to we're thinking about doing like one song at a time,
okay.
like recording a few songs, but just put out a video and one song because it's going to be free. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah.
The days of selling millions of records or whatever are over, and plus everybody downloads now. It's not like they go to the store and they're reading liner notes,
Yeah.
So instead of giving a bunch of music, we figure, just let them lend their attention to one song at a time in a video,
Yeah.
So we'd record a music video and just put out one song at a time. And that way, it's fun for us to come up with new stuff. And plus Brett will be on new things. He's not essentially singing in a cover band, know. Yeah, but to get him on new music, I think it'll be fun for the fans and us.
Like you said, one single at a time. It keeps the band Great White in like people's minds if something's coming out every 3 or 4 months instead of every 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since the last time we talked to you in 2017.
Yeah,
that's our last album, but we weren't ever totally sure about Mitch, so we didn't want to we did a live album, but we didn't want to do a studio album. We never felt 100% like he's going to be around forever.
Okay.
So we ended up never recording new stuff with him, but now it's a different story. This guy really does our stuff good. I think he fits right in, so it's going to be cool to come out with some rockin' new thing,
Can you speak on the sound of it? Like, what would you compare it to? Like, what era of Great White or?
Well, there's stuff that really rocks, and then kind of mid-tempo stuff, kind of in the Foreigner range on a couple things, and then a couple other things are almost like our first album and Once Bitten like had a kid. You know what I mean? The energy of our first album, but just a new flavor to it,
Right.
We got a couple ballads, but they're more blues type, real blues with killer hooks. Yeah, we got one song that's really cool, but it's not a sappy ballad, like a Save Your Love type ballad. It's more slow blues with a groove or whatever, but I guess you could consider it a ballad,
Maybe Someday, something like that. Or
Yeah, but this has more of a blues thing going on.
okay,
It's just the way the chord structures are, and so you'll be able to hear a lot of different sides to this guy's voice.
word.
Which is kind of the idea.
Yeah,
But we want it to rock. We want to show a lot of energy too.
yeah. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'd seen, or no, I think I'd read an interview a while back talking. You were talking about this autobiography you're working on. Like, what's the status on that, or
Yeah.
when can we expect that? Or
Well, what happened was this Canadian company approached me, and I started doing the book like kind of on my own. I was just, which I'm not a writer, so it's slightly ridiculous, but it was going pretty good. But they told me they were giving me feedback and said there's too many stories in here. We want you to just talk about your guitar. And my idea to do an autobiography was to kind of let the fans get to know me a little bit away from the music too.
right,
And they didn't want that, so I just stopped the whole project and said I don't want to do a book like that. And then another guy approached me, just a freak deal. This guy, Jeffrey Mangus, and he's written 38 books, and he's a ghostwriter. And he sent me a message on Facebook, like a private message. And so I ended up talking to him on the phone, and he just got done with Al Di Meola's book. He did a book for, with Jazz Dude, and done all these books. So I'm going, man, that sounds great. And I explained to him about the deal I had with this other company. And so we've been working for about 3 months. We're 16 chapters in, and we're doing 2 sessions a week now. About 90 minutes we get together and just going through my life, man. Although I'm going all the way back to childhood up to now, and so there's just a ton of stories. I'm not leaving anything out. It's not going to be like a book where I'm just throwing everybody under the bus and
right.
and stuff like that. But I'm just being truthful. So there are moments that maybe some feelings could get a little bit hurt, but I'm just telling it like it is, and people are going to know about the business in our band. Just everything I've been through, and the band's been through, and a lot of stuff away from the stage, with my life. And just, you're going to get to know Mark Kendall for sure when you read this. You don't have to like it, but yeah.
Right. I'm glad to hear that because the only books I read pretty much primarily are autobiographies, and I appreciate the ones that just like really expand on outside of what you know the person for. Like I know you because of your guitar.
Right. Well, my point when I was talking to Jeffrey Mangus was I want, I'm a fan myself, so I like to hear, like somebody like Billy Gibbons, what does he do away from the stage? What does he do on the weekends? I seen him walking around in the casino one time, and I'm like, found out he lived in he has a place in Palm Desert, California. So, I'd like to hear a little bit about my heroes' lives away from music. What does this guy do? Does he have hobbies?
Yeah.
So I would figure people want to get to know me. Fans would like to get to know me a little bit away from my guitar. So you'll get to hear the way I started and, things I went through in my life. I was a baseball player till I was 18. So, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And just stuff like that, life.
Right. I mean, obviously you've been sober now for a long time, but like how hard is remembering some of those key moments? Are they all pretty ingrained in your mind, or did you
Yeah.
have to like really
I,
like dig for some of that or some of those
I
memories?
have more of a problem with yesterday than I do 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
My short-term memory is kind of the problem, but I remember things pretty darn good from, in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. My childhood, there's so many things that stick out. And so I can tell it pretty good, but I wasn't walking around in total coma. You know, I was a pretty good beer drinker, but you know, I didn't roll out of bed and just drink whiskey, you know, or something. So, you know, my brain's not that damaged.
A couple years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to Jack Russell on his podcast, and I brought up Psycho City because that's my favorite Great White album, and he spoke about, you know, you guys recording it in the house on the ranch, and just how much of a great memory that was for him getting to do that and recording in different rooms and just the uniqueness of it. Do you have the same kind of memories of that time period?
Well, what made it great is we kept recording in the same studio, so we kind of knew everything that was going to happen before it did. And to go to a place and record on a mobile truck, and it was out in the middle of nowhere in Santa Ynez, California, on a 300-acre ranch. We were shooting guns, and it was just awesome. It was a real free feeling. And I even wrote a song while I was there, just messing around on a bed. And my manager, hey, what was that? What was that you just played? And I go, I got this little new idea. And he goes, let's work on that, man. Let's put that down today. So, you know, stuff like that was happening, which wouldn't happen in the environment we normally record in.
Yeah.
We'd just be doing what we do, and you know, the songs we worked out, we just record those. We wouldn't be coming up with things. It was just the environment in a house out in the middle of nowhere. It was, you know, kind of just being free and coming up with things and jam and just doing a lot of stuff like that. So the vibe was killer on that album, and the sound was really good. And we had fired our bass player because he really wasn't a bass player, Tony Montana. So, and he was so interested in guitar, we just go play guitar, dude. I go, I'll be in the front row, man, cheering you on. But why do something you hate, you know? So we got Dave Spitz to play bass, who's Danny Spitz's brother from Anthrax.
Yeah.
Who's all about bass. Like, this guy is such a bass fan, and he's so good. I mean, he knows the bass player's name in, like, you know, Iron Butterfly. Yeah, I mean, it's not Iron Butterfly. And, what's the band that did Iron Butterfly? But you know what I'm saying? Like, he knows the bass player's names in, like, every band. He's such a bass fan. So he's pure bass. And he did such a good job on that album. Just a great dude, great bass player. And so we had that element, which when you get a new guy around, it creates it like kind of like a new energy, you know? And so that was really cool. It was just, everything was great about it. And a lot of people have said what you said, it's their favorite record. It just, because of the timing and Nirvana coming out and everything, it kind of flew under the radar a little bit. But then people started discovering the record later. Like my best friend, who's he's my worst critic. Like, I always bring him stuff. He picks the singles, and the guy can't carry a tune in a bucket. He's tone deaf, but he can pick singles. He'll tell me what song's going to be the hit. So I always brought the stuff to him early when we're done. And Psycho City's his favorite record. Says nothing can touch it, because nothing you ever did could touch that album. So, just like you just said, it's your favorite record. So, yeah, everything about doing that record was cool, man.
There's just so much. I mean, I love all your albums, but there's just something about that, like you said, cohesively. Like, it's just slightly darker than normal Great White. Most of the songs, you had long songs before, but there's just half the album is like 7 minutes plus songs.
Yeah.
It's like, was that kind of a period where you guys were just like, let's just do whatever we want? You know,
yeah.
It's 1991.
We do whatever we want. You know, the days of the 3-minute songs are over. We're just going to play it until it ends. You know, it's like, I'm just going to keep playing until they tell me to quit playing. You know what I mean?
Did you guys did you build booths in there? Did you like record in a closet, or how were you recording?
No, like for my amp, I just found rooms that sounded good.
Okay.
This place was all wood, hand carved. You know, it was a lot of wood in this house, and it just sounded good in there. Like, I had my amp in a hallway, and it sounded amazing in there. Plus, we had a room mic, that wasn't too ambient. It was short enough to where it sounded real good. So I had a mic set up away from the amp, and it's really cool. What I liked about it is it sounded the way my ears heard it on the tape. You know what I mean? To where that you don't always get that. It's like I'm standing in front of my amp. I really love my sound, and then I hear it back, and it sounds nothing like what I was listening to.
Oh yeah.
To where this was pretty matched, and I liked that element also.
Was every song recorded in that same way, or did you move to different areas, different rooms?
We did some overdubs elsewhere later in other buildings away from where we recorded the album.
Oh, okay.
I did some solos and some feedback stuff and stuff like that in a building across from where we do all our records. So we did do some background vocals and stuff like that elsewhere.
Okay.
But for the most of the record, we did live playing together, and then some of the guitar would be scratch guitar, so I would replay it. But just to get the energy correct, we always play together in a room, and so the drums and bass get handled. And then my guitar might not be permanent, but sometimes it was.
I did want to ask specifically about the writing of Love Is a Lie. Like when you write a song like that, there's so much, so many parts going on. And then like when you get to the solo and then it turns into piano solo and then we got your guitar solo, then back into Jack's vocals. And then there's this long outro guitar solo. Is that written that way, or is that something that happens spontaneously while you're recording?
It wasn't. I knew I was going to do a solo at the end that was going to be long, but we didn't write it that way. It was just however long you want the fade to go.
Okay.
And Niven liked long endings, our manager. He kind of liked that. So that's the way that happened. But I came up with that progression, and the song kind of stemmed from that. The verses kind of which ended up kind of being the chorus too, and we just played it differently. So it was just a little progression and then it was a group effort to put the song together. When I felt strong about a song, I used to go into 24-track studios and bring it to the band. I'd play bass, guitar, I'd hum the melody, and I go, here's an idea I have. So, because a lot of times if I just play it on acoustic and go, I got this idea, oh man, that sounds like AC/DC, And so when I felt strong about the idea, because they can't hear everything in between my ears, right?
Right.
So I would go in and record it so it wouldn't get shot down like that, just to eliminate the risk of them, saying they don't like it. I would give them a lot more to listen to, and that way, if they didn't like it then okay, fine. But a lot of times, people are quick to, nah, that's no good. Yeah.
Well, bringing it back to current day, you guys have been, like a lot of your shows last year and a lot of your shows scheduled this year with Slaughter. Talk a little bit about how you feel that kind of works out, the two bands together. Like,
it's kind of a trip, today's world is so different. It's the most requested package, according to our agent.
Really?
It might get a hair old for us, but the fans seem to love it. I don't know what's up with that, but we have more shows this year with other folks, so it'll be a little different this year. But yeah, we've been doing shows with Slaughter, and it always seems to have a good night. And we switch up our set a lot, and so do they. They do a lot of different things, and so we're not giving them the same show year after year or anything, So, and people still show up, so nobody's complaining. I mean, but it is a little bit strange, something that would never happen in our heyday. We used to just well, we toured with one band, so in that regard, it is the same,
Right.
If we go out with the Scorpions, we might go out for 6 months with the Scorpions, So you're going to see us and the Scorpions every night.
Yeah. Do you miss that aspect of the business, like touring like for 6 months at a time, or now that you're older, you're like, no, I'm glad I'm not doing that?
Well, yeah, I did it for so long. It's kind of cool to be home more,
Yeah.
Get to know my children.
Yeah. Right.
who are fully grown now, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you get more time with the family, and it kind of makes up for all the years that I had to watch my kids grow up on videotapes, and it's a little bit tough. There's a lot of compromising. You have this dream that you want to be in a rock band and go on tour and make records, but there is some sacrifices, that you have to deal with when you have a family and stuff.
Absolutely.
So I miss. I mean, we're not opposed to going out on a bus for 2 months, or if it makes sense financially and stuff. But we're just touring. We're doing our, the airplane, the fly dates kind of for the moment. We might go to Europe for 6 weeks or something like that. We've done that in the past few years. That's the only real touring. We don't disappear for a year and a half anymore.
Yeah.
I turned 2 ages on one tour. I left. I was 31. I came home when I was 33.
What?
It was nonstop touring for a year and a half. It was like crazy.
Wow.
We didn't go home on our break. We went to the Bahamas just to kind of goof around there, and then came back and continued touring with another band. And so yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's got to be a weird comeback after over a year. I mean, you feel like a completely different person, and like a few days at home, you're like, what am, stir crazy? What am I doing?
Super weird. It's weird. Yeah. You're so used to living in hotels and, playing all the time.
Yeah.
It's, you kind of don't know what to do with yourself,
Right. Right on, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come back with me. Let's make sure next time's not 9 years from now.
Thanks, Chad. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's fun, man. Good seeing you.
There you go, Mark Kendall of Great White. A huge thank you to Melissa from Moxie Publicity for her support and help with that one. And of course, a massive thank you to Mark Kendall for taking some time out there to hit me up on Zoom and return to this podcast for the 3rd time. The previous 2 times were quite a while back. Like I mentioned earlier, nearly 9 years ago in June of 2017, he was on episode 129. And the year before that, he was on episode 89. So there's some history there. Of course, we're probably talking a lot more about the era with Terry Ailu. So you're getting completely different aspects of the history of the band when you check out these episodes that Mark's been on Thunder Underground. So I'm very happy to, again, be able to have Mark on here. Like I mentioned in the kind of the intro, the band was a big part of my youth, a big part of me getting into hard rock was bands like Poison and Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and Warrant, and Great White, of course, was heavy in the mix of all that to me. I was a huge fan of the sound of Mark's guitar, his guitar solos. I know I talked about it in the past when Jason and I had talked about this album, and I did right here in this interview with Mark, but I just love all of his work, but especially on Psycho City, just some of those guitar solos like in Love Is a Lie and Maybe Someday. There's just so much soul, I guess would be the right word, to go with the, the bluesiness, and it just sounds more natural and intentional than a lot of guitarists from that time did. Even ones that were just amazing guitarists, it just sounded like it was like, here's a really cool guitar solo that sounds cool in this cool song, and that's great and all, but it just didn't seem to have the feeling that Mark Kendall possessed, in my opinion at least. And I felt the same way about Jack Russell's voice. And speaking of Jack Russell, I also had the opportunity to have him on the podcast. He was on episode 390 in 2024. That was probably about this time, exactly 2 years ago. Because I remember it was around February, March, and then he unfortunately passed away later that year in August. So it was a complete honor for me to finally be able to get Jack on the podcast as well. And we also talked a bit about Psycho City. So if you heard that and you're a fan of that area, be sure and check out that episode. Or if you're just a fan of Great White, obviously check out that episode as well. But if you're a fan of all this stuff I kind of lumped in, with that 80s era of Great White, like they've been touring with Slaughter, and I mentioned that up front, Mark Slaughter's been on the podcast before. A couple different members of Warrant have been on multiple times. Frank Hannon from Tesla has been on 4 times. Brian Wheat of Tesla. Tracy Guns and Phil Lewis have both been on. Phil Lewis a couple times. Phil X from Bon Jovi. Vivian Campbell from Def Leppard and Dio. Dizzy Reed of Guns N' Roses. Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. Well, formerly of Twisted Sister. In the off chance you've missed that news, well, you probably didn't miss the news that Twisted Sister announced they were reuniting and playing some 50th anniversary shows. And then within a couple months after that, they announced that these are canceled. Dee Snider has health issues that he doesn't feel he can overcome to perform at a high level. And he worded it kind of like, I'm stepping away, not that the band's going away. And then a month or so later, here, just a couple days ago, it was announced that Sebastian Bach will be the vocalist for Twisted Sister on their upcoming shows. They have not announced any, I don't believe, but they said fall of 2026. So there's just some random side news from that era for you. But Dee Snider was on this podcast several years ago, and it was a really fun one for me. Also had on Jeff Tate, the original voice of Queensryche. Glenn Hughes, the voice of Deep Purple from the early days. Dead Daisies, Black Country Communion, Black Sabbath. He has been on here 3 times. That was one of the highest honors of my life. Michael Monroe of Hanoi Rocks. Members of Firehouse, Trickster, Taiketo, Kix, Lillian Axe. And I haven't even mentioned Gene Simmons of Kiss. Bruce Kulick, formerly of Kiss, was also on here. But it's stepping outside of that area. I've also had on members of Seven Dust, Saliva, Corrosion Conformity, Breaking Benjamin, Skillet, Three Doors Down, Hailstorm, Trapped, Megadeth, Testament, Death Angel, Creator, Dark Tranquillity, Journey, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Bullet Boys, Living Color, Vanilla Ice. See, we just kind of spanned the gamut there. There's so much you can check out. 448 episodes prior to this one. So if you hit like, follow, subscribe, wherever you're listening now, whether it be Spotify or some other streaming service you can listen, most places podcasts are heard, hit that subscribe or follow button, leave a review, that always helps as well. But if you follow, you don't miss upcoming episodes. And there's a lot of upcoming episodes. I mean, there's always upcoming episodes, right? But there's officially several that have been recorded. I've got recorded episodes coming up with Axel Rudi Pell, the German guitar legend. Comes on to talk about his, I believe, like 20-something solo album. The guy's a guitar phenom. You also have on Dave Anthony of 10 Ton Mojo, Drew Cagle of Drew Cagle and the Reputation, Holly West, and Fred Aching of the band Dead Groove. Fred is also in Kings of Thrash with Dave Elfson of Megadeth. Very cool. Dave Elfson has been on this podcast a couple times. Someone else that has been on this podcast once is John Bush, one of my favorite vocalists of all time. And something I guess I just didn't know or forgot was that John Bush apparently auditioned for Great White. So that might be something to bring up to John Bush or Mark Kendall next time either one of them's back on the podcast. But I saw that, I think it was on Wikipedia back when I was looking up just random things for this episode, and came across that, and I was kind of like, oh, that's cool. Armored Saint with, early Great White. The vocals of Armored Saint with the early Great White seems, like a unique combo that would have been kind of interesting. But they obviously wouldn't have went in the direction I don't think they had even. I don't know. It's just kind of weird to think of John Bush, shifting in the direction they went with, like the Angel Song and Missed a Bone and stuff like that. But hey, stranger things have happened, right? That'd be an alternate an alternate reality. Members of Halloween have also been on this podcast. See, I'm just rambling now and shooting information out. All right. If this is your first time listening, it's greatly appreciated. Can't thank you enough. You can listen directly at thethunderunderground.com. You can see links for all the socials. Give me a follow on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. There's daily content that is completely separate from these episodes. There is content from these episodes. You can find clips of Mark talking, but there's also tons of daily content that have completely nothing to do with these weekly episodes. But all those coming up and more. I've got a couple more scheduled for next week, and I'll let you know about those once they happen. But again, a massive thank you to Moxie Publicity, DEB Concerts, Sunset Tattoo, and of course, Mark Kendall. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.